that you're all here today. We have already put in place a flood recovery food production plan to support farmers in the flood-affected areas. As the flood water recedes, and for many of you, you've noticed that it's been receding very fast in many areas, we will embark on a flood recession food production intervention. His Excellency the President has approved the sum of 9.7 billion naira for us to implement this plan and to implement it speedily. This plan has 4 components. First, we will release 40,400 metric tons of food from the strategic grain reserve for families affected directly by the flood. Second, we will provide improved seeds and fertilizers to farmers that are directly affected. These will be provided by the federal government, free of charge at no cost to the states, to allow these farmers to quickly return to their farms as soon as the flood water has receded. Third, in the states that are affected by the floods, with vast areas that are also not affected, as I've shown you from the data, you can see that, we will provide improved seeds and fertilizers and other farm inputs to farmers in those areas to do what we call double-up production plan, allowing them to produce more food for farmers in their own state. Finally, in other parts of the country that are not affected at all by floods, we will provide improved seeds, fertilizers, and farm implements to help our farmers to double up on food production. That way, we have enough food produced in other parts of the country to shore up national food supply. And we can move that food from areas of surplus production to areas of deficit. Let me lay out to you what we have done in terms of procuring the inputs. We have already secured 100 metric tons of seed of extra early maturing maize, which matures in 60 days. These will plant 5,500 hectares of farmlands in the affected states. It will allow these farmers that have been affected to have a crop and feed themselves quickly before the next main planting season. This will produce 11,000 metric tons of maize. This will be further complemented with a massive effort from the ministry, working with the state governments, to produce an additional 500,000 metric tons of maize to be produced during the dry season under irrigation. We have already mobilized within and outside Nigeria over 14,300 metric tons of rice seed, enough to plant 300,000 hectares of rice farmlands in the flood-affected areas. Bear in mind that most of the areas that are affected by rice, those that are actually along the river banks, and we have enough of seed to be able to do that. This will allow us to produce a total of 1.2 million metric tons of rice grain. We will also provide planting materials for cassava, for yams and plantains for the affected areas. Government is also going to do all this in addition to what I mentioned to you about the release of food from our strategic grain reserve. Let us talk a little bit about the dry season issues. We already have in the ministry a normal plan for dry season production of rice. And that dry season production of rice is going to be done across states in the northwest of the country that we have already targeted. And many of the commissioners, you've seen my staff, they've been there to talk to you about all those plans. The estimated production from the dry season rice production, that is different from the flood one, is a total of 420,000 metric tons of rice. So if you take it together, the 420,000 and you add it to the maize and you add it to the 1.2 million of rice grain, you can see that we are well over compensating for whatever losses that we have experienced from the flood. So, ladies and gentlemen, the flood is a wake-up call. With changing patterns, we must develop new policies. The federal government and all the state ministries of agriculture, we have to be smarter. Look today at the rest of the world. Europe is going through floods and also with drought. The United States went through its worst drought in 50 years this year. And just recently, it's gone through Hurricane Sandy. And right now, it's going through another series of hurricanes going right through it. But did you see any panic? Did you hear anybody panicking? That's because they planned properly. And therefore, we cannot afford not to plan ahead. This year, it happened to us, we were all caught napping. But today, we're talking about flood. Who knows? With climate change, you may be talking about drought. And so we must plan. Therefore, I would like all honorable commissioners to work with us, federal and state, to put in place weather index crop insurance for all the farmers that are in the state. That way, if we have a drought, the farmers get compensated. Second, for all the states that are in the flood-prone zones, I think this wake-up call suggests to me that we must have flood disaster payment schemes. In other words, between federal, between state, and local government, we must ensure those farmers and farming communities all across those flooded plains, so that should there be another shock like that, we are not caught without preparation, and there will be ways in which they are compensated for any losses. So therefore, I want to charge all the honorable commissioners as colleagues in this work to feed Nigeria. Let us think differently. The world has changed, the weather is changing, and therefore we cannot do business as usual. I also want to say that we must also move into better water management systems. Take a look at it today. We have flood, the water is receding. If all that water recedes, and we have not harvested the water, we don't have shallow wells, we don't have surface water reservoirs, it means that we are losing on both sides. The flood was devastating, and then when the flood water is going, we lose all the water, and when we go into dry season, we don't have enough water to carry the crop to the dry season. So this whole thing about just focusing on just massive irrigation, no, the world has changed. It is how we manage water, getting the most grain per drop of water, that is the issue. That is my responsibility, and that is your responsibility, also working with the Ministry of Water Resources. We really simply have to think differently about this. So as part of our efforts to ensure that we do this, the Ministry of Agriculture, our ministry, will distribute 5,000 motorized pumps to farmers that they can use, for those that have shallow tube wells and some of those that have other tanks that they can use to pump water as we go into the dry season. So we'll be distributing those to the states, so that you can get to the farmers. My team in the ministry, and I really want to thank them very much, have been working sleepless nights for the past 2 weeks on our rollout plan for this flood recovery food production. The successful implementation of this program is crucial to reduce the negative impacts of the flood on our food production. This program must succeed. It must, I want to underline, succeed. There's no margin for error. There's no degree of freedom for failure. It must succeed. And therefore, I want to say that we will not tolerate any attempts to undermine or hinder the successful implementation of this program. I will be briefing the National Economic Council and the executive governors, as their support is crucial for the successful implementation of Mr. President's directives for the flood recovery food production program. as honorable commissioners, who are the ones that drive agriculture on the ground, are the most crucial for us. And I need your help, and I need your support. I have therefore directed that all the 36 state directors of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development should immediately work with the state honorable commissioners of agriculture to ensure successful implementation. That is why this room is actually very full today, because you have all the 36 directors, state directors of agriculture being here. I have also asked that this be led by our 6 regional directors of agriculture on this crucial national assignment. You remember that when we told you at the beginning of our administration that we were going to decentralize the ministry, we did that. We have 36 regional state directors. We have 6 regional directors that are there. Who knew that we were going to have a flawed situation? And now you have them there with you, working with you, planning with you. And delivery of this program as we go on will be done with them. If we had not done that, the federal government will have nobody on ground to work with you. And I really want to thank all those state directors and regional directors for a remarkable job that they have been doing representing us and making things work on the ground. So, starting from Wednesday, November 14th, my ministry will start the rollout of the first part of the Flood Recovery Food Production Program, with the distribution of 40,000 metric tons of food out of our strategic grain reserves to affected families in flood-affected areas. We will specifically target women and children. Let me explain. Somebody wanted to clap, you can. Let me explain why. The very fact that we get food to the camps does not mean that women and children, who are the most vulnerable in this situation, will get it. And I have said to our staff in the ministry that we must get our things to get to those that matter. If it gets in the hands of women, they prepare the food, they take care of the household, they are the ones that are managing it, then you know that the impact is going to be there, especially on children. We cannot afford a situation, because federal government is providing this free of charge, that, the bags walk away from the camps or walk away from those that are affected and walks away from the children. If that happens, it means that we have failed. It means that we will have a worsening nutritional situation for children, and we cannot let that happen. So I want to really urge all the honorable commissioners and the committees that you already have in the state, please, this one that we are doing, I know you are doing a lot of work efforts, and I commend you a lot for what you're doing. This one is basically for women and for children. We do not have time to waste. So we all must gear up and roll out this program successfully. The farmers in your state can't wait. The women and children can't wait. And the nation can't wait. Therefore, I wish to charge you to please kindly step up to the plate and display unusual, remarkable leadership at this crucial moment of need. We must ensure transparency and full accountability. There will be zero tolerance for any delay or corruption as we launch this program to revitalize hope for our farmers and ensure that we secure the food supply of the nation. I know, I am confident that with you here, around us, with us, working with us on the ground, I am very confident that we cannot and that we will not fail. I thank you so much for coming today, and I wish you all very fruitful delivery.